Good morning and welcome to Greece. My name's Andrew and I live here, and it is an absolutely beautiful day, and I am really excited to be here and bringing you this video because we're right in at the beginning of the construction of a fantastic villa here outside Kalamata. And this is going to be quite some villa, I have to tell you, and I'm planning to follow it over the next year and a half with a series of videos showing it basically rising out of the ground and demonstrating what you can build if you know the right people here in Greece. But all of that is to come. Today, what we're going to talk about is where we are, what they're planning to build, the expected costs as they stand at the moment, and more specifically, I want to talk about the land, because let's face it, at the moment, the only thing to look at is several holes in the land. But I need to talk about the land, because if you're planning to buy land in Greece, if you're planning to build in Greece, the land is critical, and it's not as simple as just buying a plot of land. So I'm going to talk about what you need to be aware of, some of the pitfalls, and I think they often apply regardless of where you are in the world. It's not just Greece, it's anywhere in the world. So I hope you enjoy. So let's start with where we are. Now we are officially in a place called Mikri Mantinia, meaning Little Mantinia, and we are to the east of Kalamata. I don't know if you can see over there. I hope you can see over there. That is Kalamata, and we are about 10 minutes drive from the centre of Kalamata. So this is a very, very good place to build, very popular. Now, a lot of you who are interested in Kalamata and perhaps building villas in Kalamata may have heard of Kato Verga, which is very, very popular with people to build villas. But the reality is the land there is becoming less and less available, and the land that is available is becoming less and less desirable. And that is effectively between us here and the view that you get in the distance of Kalamata. So we're slightly further south, but we're not talking far, we're talking a couple of kilometres. But what you get down here is a lot more value for your money without any of the drawbacks perhaps that you get nowadays in Kato Verga. So it's a fantastic location. We are on the Messenian Gulf. You can see we're elevated here. We're about 200 metres up. We have a fantastic view. Now you may not be able to see on the camera, but I can see over in the far distance there, Koroni, right on the tip there. And then if we come round here, we have Petalithi, and then we have Buka Beach running all the way around from Petalithi to Kalamata here, which is about 10 kilometres. Fantastic beach. And Kalamata itself is one of the major urban conurbations in the Peloponnese. But to be really honest with you, it is where I would live. So I hope you can hear me above the noise, but what are they planning to build here? Well, this main hole here is going to have a 330 square metre concrete constructed villa, very modernistic in its style, 2 floors, beautiful views over, as we've already seen, the Messenian Gulf here. And that is going to be the main property for the Dutch owner who has purchased this land and who is going to live here. But they are also going to have, to all intents and purposes, a granny annex, which will be linked by a suspended pergola between the two buildings. So next to the 330 square metre building, you have this hole here. I hope you can see this hole here. This is being prepared for a 50 square metre, similarly styled, but much smaller, granny annex. So the individual here can have his family here and has a guest house or somewhere for elderly relatives. Now, as well as the main house here, and also the granny annex here, we are going to have just in front of it, with a fantastic view over the Messenian Gulf itself, a swimming pool. And I hope you can see here, they have basically started to dig the swimming pool. All the ground excavations are being undertaken at the moment. They will be finished before Christmas, that's what I'm told. And then after Christmas, February, March, they will be pouring the concrete. And I'll be back here in March, most definitely, to see what is rising out of the ground. Now, the property itself will be entered via a gate off the main road down here, and this is the road from Kalamata to Aeropoli. As I said, we are about 5 or 6 kilometres only from Kalamata itself. It's very easy access, but we're on a main road. You come up what will be a paved driveway, and then the main property will be here on the left as you come up this driveway. But you can see the construction here is pretty significant. They're having to cut down into the rock, and the site itself is fairly large. The site we're talking about here is about 6,000 square metres. What did he pay, you want to know? Well, I think he got a bit of a bargain. The owner bought 6,000 square metres of land just south of Kato Verga, 6 kilometres from Kalamata, with these amazing views that you've seen, for 250,000 euros. And he only purchased the land at the end of last year. The build values themselves obviously change, but the build value for this property exceeding land is going to be about €2,200 a square metre. So it's relatively high spec for property in Greece. You work that out, we're talking about 750,000 euro build value. Add in the land, another 250,000 euros. We have €1 million build value on this villa. I hope he enjoys it and I hope he uses it a lot, but it will be fantastic. And you've seen from the plans, it is quite some spectacle. So let's just offer a quick summary of this project before we move on to talk about the land in detail. This project is to build a villa of 330 square metres, a modern concrete built villa. It's going to have an additional annex here of 50 square metres, which will be located and connected to the main property via a shaded pergola. There is a swimming pool being built down here, an infinity pool, and the total cost of this project is going to be about €1 million. That's 750,000 euros for the construction itself, about 220 euros a square metre. And then it is an additional 250,000 euros for the land, which, as I said, was an absolute bargain because it was bought, as I understand it, under distress. So it's a fantastic project. But let's just talk very quickly about the land itself and the challenges that land can place upon you if you buy the wrong land. So at the moment, you can see they are cutting into the bedrock to put in drainage. And this brings me on to the land itself, because this is not the first plot of land that the owner wished to purchase. He looked at a couple of others and was advised against buying them. And I just want to talk about why specifically and what you should watch out for if you yourself are thinking of doing a similar thing, regardless of whether it's in Greece or elsewhere. If you are thinking of buying land in Greece or anywhere, do not buy yourself what we would term in the British language a pup, something which is going to be a dead duck before you even start. You want something which you are going to be allowed to build on, which you are going to be allowed to build the property that you want on, which is going to not have excessive costs in doing so, and which is going to be practical and reasonable in terms of construction. So before I even talk about those specifically, let me just talk about the legal aspects here in Greece, because it's very important to understand the process and recent legal changes which may affect you, particularly as a foreigner. Not everyone out there is going to be as helpful and as honest as my friend Dimitris. Dimitris owns GDG Constructions. I'll put his details down below and those of his partners. His colleagues speak English. Dimitris unfortunately doesn't speak any English, but they are very honest. They will not lead you astray. I have heard of other people recently purchasing land and finding that they cannot really do anything with it, and I want to explain why. Now, in Greece, land is effectively split into two categories. You have agricultural land, which cannot be built on. It's self-explanatory, it's for agriculture. You then have land which is in plan, land which has been brought into the city plans and can potentially be built on. And I say potentially, okay? Now, the cost of that land will vary considerably depending on where you are buying and the location itself. I said that this is 6,000 square metres. He paid 250,000 euros for it. He got a huge bargain. That is really good value. You get a lot of speculators. They will buy land which they believe will come into plan in the future and sit on it and wait until it comes into plan. It comes into plan and they then sell it for development. The problem is there was a change of the law earlier this year, and that law very simply says that in order to be issued with a license to build, you have to have a frontage onto a main road, i.e. a road which is adopted by the council, which at an absolute minimum is of 40 metres in length. Now, this property fortunately does. The road down there is managed by the council. The frontage is over 40 metres. They are allowed to build here, but a lot of people are getting caught out by this, and it's putting land prices up. I think land prices in the next couple of years in Greece are going to go up quite considerably because of this, because it has effectively ruled out 70% of the land which was previously in plan. Because if it's not adjacent to that council adopted road, and let's be clear, a gravel dirt track across farmland is generally not adopted council road, then you cannot build in it because you will not get a license for it. In the past, land was in plan, you would be allowed to build in it. You would be given a license, provided obviously the plans that you submitted were sympathetic to the area and appropriate to the area of the land itself. That is not the case nowadays, and people are still selling and land which is in plan on the basis you can build in it. You may not be issued a license, and that is the key thing, because you buy the land, you create the plans, you submit them to the council will issue a license if they agree. But if you do not have that road frontage, you cannot get a license, regardless of what the council may want to do. The owner of this land looked at a couple of other plots before being advised that he shouldn't buy them, and he bought this one instead. There were reasons for that, practical reasons, not the legal reasons that I've just discussed, but practical reasons. One plot, for example, was apparently very steep, and Dimitris and the developers, because Dimitris manages it, were very concerned about being able to manage the heavy equipment on that slope and also the building materials on that slope. They felt that it was going to be extremely expensive and risky to do so. It would have dramatically increased the challenges for them, the risks for them, and also the cost of the build. Another plot that he looked at in Kato Verga, they turned down, I'm told, because here you can see actually the land is quite chalky, it's quite soft, it's easy to cut through. They're cutting these channels now, hopefully you can see them, they're making fast work. But the rock base of the land which he was looking at in Kato Verga was very, very hard. And again, they were very worried that the groundworks here were going to be significantly increased in cost as a result of that. Now, just to give you an idea, approximately a third of the value of the build will go into the ground. That's what it costs to prepare the land, to put in the drainage, to put in the foundations, etc. Before you get above ground, before you move the concrete above ground, you are going to spend about a third of your budget. Now, Dimitris tells me he thinks they would have spent another 50 to 60% on top of that third of the budget in order to deal with the hard rock that the previous site that he was looking at was on. So you need to be really careful of that. And the other thing you need to think about is the siting of services. If you're buying in a location like this, where is the electricity going to come from? Because you're going to have to pay to get it here. Now, in this case, I can tell you, and maybe you've already spotted it, there is an electricity pylon running up the road just there. So he's got to bring it 100 metres up here. It's very, very easy. But I have heard of people buying locations around the Peloponnese and finding that they have a choice of literally running electric cables for 3 or 4 kilometres, which is hugely expensive, or going off grid. Now, you can go off grid, but that again has significant implications, particularly when you're building a villa such as this, because you have to balance the cost of the build and the cost of the renewables, and there will be renewables in this, I'm absolutely certain, against the cost of the actual villa itself. It can become prohibitive, and you need to be really careful of that. So don't get caught out legally, get yourself a decent lawyer, don't buy land which is going to be difficult to build on, either because the land itself is very steep or inaccessible, or because perhaps the land is so hard underneath that it's going to cost you a lot of money to cut into it. So there we are. In summary, we're at the beginning of the construction of a 330 square metre modern villa with a 50 square metre annex which will be connected by a pergola. It's going to take about 1.5 years. It sits on 6,000 square metres of land. The total build value is 750,000 euros. The land costs about 250,000 euros. So we're talking about €1 million investment on behalf of the owners of this property. And it's going to be fantastic, I hope, when it's finished. But we will follow this through. We will look at the project every 3-4 months, and I will take you on the journey. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's interesting. I hope we get value out of it. If you're interested just in property or construction in Greece or buying in Greece, this series of videos is probably for you. Please watch some of my other videos. Please like me and offer me a subscribe if you do. And I look forward to doing more for you soon. Thank you very much.